Hello, and welcome to The Reading Room, the podcast from your Rowan County Public Library. I'm Morgan.
Yo, I'm Megan.
I'm Emery.
And we want to talk to you this time about programming again. We did promise some updates, some clarified dates, because it got a little bit muddled last time, I think, with all of the changes and what we knew and what we didn't know. So this time I've just got a clear bullet point list that has all of our finalized calendar on it, but also, like, we all know what's going on. The good news is we do want this stuff to come back. We do have plans for it. The bad news, yeah, like, things still are what they are. The pandemic's not over. There are all kinds of interesting new strains, and we don't know exactly what that's going to mean for what we're doing or what anybody's doing, because we've already talked about things like attending school system open houses, and now some of those might not happen. Schools might not reopen.
So fingers crossed that programming is going to go smoothly.
Yeah, it's going to happen at all.
Yeah, that it's going to happen at all.
Very unfortunate.
And if it does, we have information on it.
So I'm going to break this down kind of by section so that way you can sort of tune into, based on demographic. So for children's programming, our final dates are going to be Children's Story Time, returning on the 16th of this month, which is August. That's going to be at 4 p.m. And hopefully, all going well, then after the 16th, it's going to be every Monday and Thursday. August 28th, we'll see the return of the Lego Club. That will be at 1 p.m. And then going forward, it will be on the fourth Saturday of every month. Also, September the 7th is when we are bringing back Toddler Time. I say bringing back, but that one's kind of, Jess is doing some new things sort of with an old program, because that used to be, was that the Mother Goose Story Time?
Yeah, it was Mother Goose.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So it's taking the place of the Mother Goose Story Time.
I think that Jess plans to have some more, I think we may have even touched on last time that she wanted to do some, like, sensory activities and, like, more hands-on stuff with the littler kids. So
exactly. So there will still be some stories being told, but there will be other activities to engage them in different ways as well. Again, that's September the 7th is when that will start. And then going forward, it will be every Tuesday at 10:15 a.m. And then we have some one-time events or special events on September the 11th. That's when our superhero training camp is going to be at 1 to 3 p.m. And on October the 28th, that's when we have Read for the Record, which we talked about in our last episode, and that'll be at 6 p.m. Now, for teens and young adults, of course, Anime Club is coming back starting September the 1st, and that will be the first Wednesday of every month.
Yep.
And that will be from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. Really looking forward to that. For adults, August the 24th, that's when we welcome back Chow Club, which I know some of y'all have really been looking forward to, and Julie is raring to go. That's going to be on the fourth Tuesday of every month from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
If you want any of the recipes that they're going to be doing at Chow Club, feel free to come up to the front desk. We have 2 Mediterranean cookbooks for you to choose a recipe from, get signed up, figure out what kind of dish you want to chow down on.
Yeah, because I did thumb through both of those cookbooks, and all I can say is the only thing that stopped me from taking both of them home is that they were reserved for the program. So I definitely encourage you, take a look at that. And if you've never done Chow Club, it's a great program. Everybody picks a recipe, you cook something from the cookbook, and then you bring the food together and have kind of a potluck lunch here at the library. And it's all about what you took away from the cookbook, what you learned from, the new recipes and stuff like that. And it's been a great experience for everybody who's participated so far. It's definitely a program people wanted to see come back, and I'm very glad about that, because I think that it's delightful, honestly, to see how much people enjoy it. Also in the adult category, September the 2nd, that is when the Preserving Your Heritage program comes back. That's our genealogy club. That will be the first Thursday of every month from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. September the 16th will be our first returning movie night for adults. That will be the third Thursday of each month going forward at 5:30 p.m. September the 20th is when we welcome back Creative Coloring and Coffee, which is kind of our lunchtime adult relaxation, just sort of a chill vibe program. That's the third Monday of each month from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then our adult fall craft night comes back on October the 13th. That is a one-time special event for the season that will be at 5 p.m. And finally, in the for everybody category, for all ages, family friendly, September the 7th, hopefully, again, knock on wood, that's when we will bring back Device Advice, which are our technology classes. That's going to be the first Tuesday of each month from 4 to 6 p.m. September the 13th will be Craftin' Around for teens and adults. That's the second Monday of every month from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That is a wonderful program, and I know that Jessica always has some great ideas for that. September the 28th, that's when we will bring back On Board, our board and card game kind of family night activity. That's the last Tuesday of each month from 4 to 6 p.m.
Funny.
What?
I just now got it.
On Board?
I now got it. You think you're funny.
Oh, I know I'm funny. I just think I'm clever. Get on board at the library.
Both debatable topics, but
Do you hear this? Do you hear them roasting me? Sir.
Don't give him the pity. Don't give it to him.
I don't want your pity. I just want your validation. On September the 29th, we bring back Megan's Writer's Workshop.
What's up?
That's the last Wednesday of every month going forward, again from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. So that's the same time as Teen Anime Club. And then on October the 14th, that's our special family fall fun night event, which will be at 6 p.m. And that's always a blast. And then finally, of course, new episodes of this podcast every first and third Saturday of the month. And check out Atlanta's blog posts on the first of every month because that is where we're going to be updating with book lists and recommendations, so you can see a lot of the new items that are coming into the library, kind of get a review of them. And she's also linking them to our e-catalog, so that way those titles can be borrowed directly from Overdrive, Libby, Hoopla, and so on, wherever we have them, as well as the physical copies that are coming into the library. With that out of the way, I think that it's time to talk about what we promised last time, which is, we did a bad book club, and that was a lot of fun. And my only my only wish regarding bad book club is that Stephen King would see it.
Oh, man.
And listen to that podcast.
Me
because
too.
I just want him to know that we love him and support him. And I want to know what he thinks of his own work now. Like, I know, like, I could quote Terry Pratchett, or there's all kinds of people who they look at art that they did earlier in their careers and they go, ooh, no, maybe not that. Maybe not that. That was the old me.
So, like, low-key, I feel that exact same way, just not towards Stephen King.
No, but, like, towards your own work.
No, I feel that toward Justin Somper, which is the author of Vampirates.
Oh, my God.
Like he's grown?
Have we talked about Vampirates on this podcast yet?
I don't know if we've talked about Vampirates or not. It's my favorite bad book series.
It has been mentioned.
And I want nothing more than for the author to hear my words and to reach out to me in some way, shape, or form. My email is...
In this essay, I will...
I just want to talk to this man so badly, just to ask him, what happened?
Are you, sir, are you good?
How do you mess up such a glorious combination of vampires and pirates?
Honestly, the first
time...
By
titling the book, Vampires.
No, that's beautiful.
Is it?
The first time that you told me about Vampirates, I was not surprised to learn that they were in the J category rather than the YA until I started reading them. And then I was like, so this was very obviously written for a YA audience, in my opinion. So why is it in the juvenile section? And then I read a little more and I was like, oh, That's a reference to the author's state of being.
It's because people under 12 won't pick it apart.
Right, like that's Justin's approach, and execution is juvenile.
That's Justin's age.
Like by book 4, he just gave up on editing.
Yeah.
Like there's double paragraphs everywhere.
And
it's just so...
It is, and I agree with you. Like, I think it's a fantastic concept, and I expected it to be very much along the lines of something like The Backstagers.
Yes.
Or something like, what is that series of books where it's...
It's like I read, fam.
It's me, a librarian, reading books. How
Never
dare you insinuate? No, it's I'm trying and struggling and failing to remember the title, but it's like failed fairy tale top things where it's about like someone goes to Fairy Tale Academy or Princess Academy and flunks out.
Descendants?
No. I can't remember. Anyway,
the School of Good and Evil?
Maybe I like I said, I can't remember the title. All I remember is it's someone like a fairy tale princess goes to school and flunks out or something, and it's all about her dealing with that. But anyway, so that Magic Treehouse kind of stuff. Vampires seems like something that would have very much a Captain Underpants art style on the cover, and would be really fun to engage for someone who is like 7 to 12. Very much in the vein of the Wayside School series.
Yes.
That's kind of what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And we could and will do a whole episode on vampires.
I don't even know that it's going to be... It'll probably end up being one of those situations where, you know how like really annoyingly, like you look at the front page of a newspaper and you find an article that you're super invested in, and then it's like, continue on page... whatever, and nobody knows how to read a newspaper, right? Like you don't actually know how to get to the rest of that article.
Page A what now?
There's going to end up being a bad book club section scattered throughout so many of our podcasts dedicated solely to vampires that we can't tell you what order to listen in.
Right. It's like we're going to mention vampires every time we mention bad book club. And then you'll have to go back and listen to the breadcrumbs individually to get the full picture. But it's okay. It really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, Vampirates is an experience that you need to have. And like with any piece of B fiction, whether that is a movie or a book, it is best enjoyed in company and in person. Don't just let us tell you about it. Check it out. Books, check them out.
It's not working.
It's not working. That's her new slogan.
Anywho, sorry to derail.
Yeah, we all of that to say that this time we want to talk about some pleasant surprises that we found in the catalog, as opposed to some things like vampires, like trucks, like Night Shift. We wanted to talk about some things that we had discovered in our own catalog that, how do we kind of phrase it, like we weren't expecting to get as invested as we were.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like when I picked this up, I didn't think it was going to be as good as it was, and then it turned out to be really great. And I know that you have one ready to go.
I do. So I feel like I should preface by saying that, like, in no way did I expect this book to be bad. It just isn't something that I typically would be interested in at all. So if you know me at all, you know that I don't get into anything in the realm of the believable typically when I'm reading. Like, there's no interest to me in things like historical fiction, which is what this book was. And I worked at the public library at Central in Lexington for a year, and I saw it there first and picked it up and read the back cover. And I just, for reasons unbeknownst to myself even to this point, was so intrigued that when I came back and saw that we didn't have it in our system, I had to order it. So the title of the book is At the Wolf's Table, and it is a fiction book, and the characters didn't exist, but Hitler did actually have food tasters. And so the story is a fictional take on the very real lives and existences and experiences of the people who put their own lives on the line every day to taste test Adolf Hitler's meals and see if he would be poisoned to death.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I got so much more invested in the characters and their lives in the entire story than I ever expected to. And it was just, I think that my biggest takeaway from it was, if you're looking at a genre as a whole, as something that you aren't interested in or wouldn't read, don't. Because there is so much more to it if you've never delved into it before than you could even imagine that there is.
Yeah, that sounds like such a niche thing to write about. For one, like, we're all so used to, like, the one Quentin Tarantino movie where it's set in World War II.
The Inglorious one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, we're so used to, like, death and murder and action whenever it comes to, like, World War II topics or, like, spies.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm not saying there isn't any of that in your book. I don't know. I've never read it. But I'm just saying we're kind of so used to it being more generally action-packed. Like, oh, a World War II spy or a soldier or something like that. But Hitler's taste tester?
Exactly.
Yeah, because I think you're right that World War II as a concept has kind of been mythologized in a genre. And it's almost like a drama / thriller subgenre where there are two kinds of World War II fiction, and World War I is also very similar. It just gets less coverage, I think, on the thriller side versus the drama side.
Oh, and not to mention, like, the Holocaust aspect of it.
Of course.
Right, exactly. So you have things like Schindler's List, and you have things like Saving Private Ryan, stuff like that. And then on the other side, you have things like, I forget the name of it. It was that heist movie that had all kinds of famous people in it, like John Goodman. Where they were all art experts and historians, and they were going in and they were like stealing art before the Nazis could destroy it to like get it out of the country.
What it was called either, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
The Monuments Men.
Yes.
The Monuments Men. There we go. And so it's always either spies or heist or something like that, or it's really down the nitty gritty, kind of in the trenches, and how terrible it was is the focus.
So with that in mind, like, what made this book kind of stand out?
So it was really, really interesting to see a different perspective on World War II in general, but also to see a different perspective on the Holocaust and on Adolf Hitler himself, because technically speaking, this is a book about Hitler, right? Because it's about his tasters. It's about the people who were keeping him alive every day. But he doesn't show face on screen once. Throughout this entire book, he doesn't appear.
Like, he's not a character except as a looming presence, kind of like in the background.
Exactly.
Oh.
So it's really, really interesting because it's told from the point of view of a German woman who was raised by a father that told her entire life, in this family, we are not Nazis. We will never be Nazis. And now she and 9 other women are solely responsible for keeping Hitler from being poisoned every day. So it's just a very interesting take, a very interesting perspective on the justifications of what is right and what is wrong within that time period. And there are a lot more things that make it really interesting and really unique, and I can't go too in-depth with it without giving things away that are twists or would be spoilers if you were to read it for yourself, which I highly recommend that everyone do.
Well, you definitely got me interested, because I'm not really a historical or romantic fiction person myself. Very rarely do I want to pick something up that, like, fictional, if it's not pure fantasy. I like science fiction, I like fantasy, I like supernatural horror, and I like some stuff that is like contemporary fantasy, such as Shannon Maguire's books.
Yes, exactly.
Like Every Heart a Doorway. But I mean, World War II fiction, a Wild West fiction,
exactly,
Victorian stuff. So, but this sounds really interesting, especially what you've sold me on is that perspective of what everyone sees as the most evil man ever to live, and using that characterization to create an atmosphere to tell the story of these other people who kind of have to live in that atmosphere
Right.
without making the story about him.
Exactly.
Which is great, because I don't want to read a book about Hitler, and I
Exactly.
certainly don't want to read one that makes him sound interesting or cool. But to read a book about this woman who is in this situation, like that is interesting to
Right.
me. That is a draw.
And of course, it's not by choice. You know, like
Right.
they didn't get to decide. Yes,
Nobody
I
volunteers
will
to
or-
be a poison taster.
Exactly.
I imagine. I hope not.
So it's really, that's another thing about it that I think I found really intriguing right from the beginning. They start you out in a situation where all of these women have just been brought together for the first time into this dining room where they're going to spend the next, X amount of months of their lives, and they're all starving. They're all starving. We're in the middle of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has any food. And so while their families are at war or at home starving or XYZ, every single day they're eating 3 overfull meals.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this perspective of guilt that also plays very much into the entire storyline. And then there's the perspective of, you've got some characters who just worship Hitler
Mm-hmm.
because, of course, those people existed. And so some of the women who are tasting his food are absolute devout followers.
Glad to be
Some
here
of the
protecting
women,
him.
Yes, exactly. Some of the women tasting his food are even more strongly averted to him and his reign and the Nazi Party in general than our main character is. I definitely wouldn't say that she has a neutral standpoint, but it's really, really interesting to see the differing perspectives and then to think about, like, historically, yeah, that was probably accurate. Like, probably some of the people doing this for him would have volunteered had they not been recruited to do it in the first place. And some of them would never have set foot in this room.
And an insider's perspective on a situation that is already very polarizing and already very muddied is always interesting. So, like, even if this is fiction, and even if this is not a true historical or biographical account, it's interesting to think about, because that is a perspective that we are not shown, that we don't hear about, is every conversation that centers around the Nazi Party and around Hitler is about Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't often think, because it's so easy to demonize the Nazis, which, like, as appropriate,
Yes.
but kind of as a monolith. When you think the Nazis, you think of Nazi Germany as this sweeping entity.
Yeah.
And you don't think about very often the people who were kind of caught up in it, who were drafted into the war, or who were given the choice, like, either you can join the party or we can kill your family,
Right.
or things like that. And you don't think about the people who maybe didn't volunteer to be there and what they had to go through and how they felt about it behind the lines, because it's very easy to see a faceless enemy. And especially in these times, now that the war is going on 100 years behind us, to think of it as something in the distant past similar to a dragon or a wicked sorcerer or a ghost. Nazi has become synonymous with jackboot wearing, homogenized, black uniformed evil, and you don't think about the individual people and perspectives that were involved, because these were real people, and it's something that really happened.
Sure.
People did not make World War II up the way that they made up dragons and fairies.
Yeah.
Necessarily, maybe. And so maybe.
We're not sure.
Hypothetically.
Tune back in.
So yeah, no, that is interesting, even if it's fictional, because you just don't get a lot of stories from that perspective, period. Well, and speaking of perspectives, that definitely does make me want to read that book, because I'm always open to new perspectives. And, we talked about Bad Book Club, and we talked about what that means. I said, I use the term B fiction. I think that it's important to acknowledge that B fiction, that term comes from a place of love and affection, like Roger Corman films. They were not necessarily intended to be what we view them as, but they come across as humorous in a specific way, because there is a certain audience engagement value to being able to see the zipper, so to speak.
Right.
And we love to engage that. And one of the more contemporary cult classics among B fiction, I think, B media, many people are familiar with, especially in our generation, because it happened during the age of the internet. So it had a unique opportunity to go viral in a way that it was difficult for things like the Rocky Horror Picture Show to go viral, was The Room by Tommy Wiseau. And if you have not seen that movie, it is by no means a good movie, but very much like the books we discussed for Bad Book Club, it is something where its creators set out with a serious intention to create a meaningful piece of media. And that did not happen in the way that they thought it was going to happen. So it's very much kind of a, hey, get a bunch of friends together who haven't seen it, pop some popcorn, we're all going to pile into the living room and watch this truly awful movie, and we're going to have a blast. And it became so awful and so well known for its awfulness that, of course, someone had to write a tell-all book about it.
Oh, you finally got there. I was getting worried. I'm like,
this is a meaningful segue.
He's just going to tell us about The Room.
I'm just like, oh my God, this is page 5 of something, and I'm still not entirely for sure what the thesis is.
Let me tell you about Greg Sestero's book, The Disaster Artist.
Oh my God.
Wow. I just, is it hot in here, or am I just getting roasted today? Shouldn't have worn layers. So, The Disaster Artist is a book that I did not have a lot of expectations for it. I tried to go in without expectations, but having seen the movie, I was prepared to think poorly of it, because I thought poorly of The Room when I saw it. And I thought poorly of my experience with it. Like, the only reason I enjoyed it was because I watched it with a bunch of people who were going, like, oh, here comes this part, and then they would all look at me to see, like, how I was going to react. Of course. And Greg Sestero was one of the stars of the film, and he was not great in it, but that's not necessarily a statement on him as an actor. Because he didn't have a lot to work with. So context matters. It's hard to blame him. So I didn't really think that this book was going to be a best-selling smash hit. And I have to say, I was very surprised. This was a really fascinating look behind the scenes of what is legitimately the worst movie I have ever seen.
Okay, so I'm going into this situation completely blind. What is The Room?
So The Room is a movie written, produced, directed, and starred in by Tommy Wiseau.
Oh my God.
And when you see that on a film, you think, first, this is someone's passion project, and second of all, this person really wanted this movie to get made, and it looks like maybe nobody else did.
Right.
Like, maybe other people were actively resisting the release of this film. And Tommy Wiseau is a figure of mystery. He came out of nowhere. He has this unplaceable, vaguely European accent that no one can really pin him to a particular ethnicity or country or culture. And he seems to have basically bottomless wealth that he spends on frivolous things. Like, for example, as discussed in the book, usually in Hollywood, the really high quality equipment that you use, like the high-end cameras that they film amazing movies like The Matrix, Lord of the Rings on, studios rent this from rental companies that do nothing but circulate it. They don't buy it because they're very expensive. And of course, if you own it, like any other rental place, you have to maintain it, whatever. Tommy just bought them. He just bought a bunch of really expensive high-end cameras and booms and the trolleys that they go in and all of the set pieces. I think he bought a sound stage to film the movie on. He just purchased all of these things and acted like it would have been way more of an inconvenience for him to rent instead of just buying. He didn't understand the difference or the concept.
So essentially, this should have been the best movie ever made.
Honestly.
You would hope. And this is a movie about a man who is betrayed by everyone he cares about. He is getting married to the girl of his dreams. And as this is happening, a number of kind of like backstabbings occur where she cheats on him with his best friend. And yes, I'm spoiling the movie, but also there's no way to spoil The Room. So I won't describe the ending, but his fiance cheats on him with his best friend, who is played by Greg Sestero, who wrote this tell-all book. And so he talked about meeting Tommy Wiseau in acting classes and what a strange experience this was. And he described his experience filming on The Room and how it was not at all what he expected, and meeting the other people who were also on the cast and how many of them were also surprising people, but they were all kind of united in their wariness of Tommy.
Okay.
And Tommy's strangeness in a very real way is what brought the movie together and made it happen despite many, many obstacles, most of which were kind of put in place by Tommy himself in the act of producing and directing the movie. And it is a wild ride. It's really well written. I laughed a number of times, and it's the first time I've laughed out loud at a book since Terry Pratchett died, I think. Since the last Discworld book that I read, because those always make you laugh. But I wasn't expecting to laugh. I was expecting to learn something, but I didn't expect to have a good time doing it.
Right.
And this, yes, it is someone's tell-all book, co-written with someone who does these sort of things. And those kinds of books have a certain flavor to them. You know, they have a certain way that they come off. They're all kind of similar.
You expect B literature, maybe.
Right. But this drew me in, and just the mystery of Tommy Wiseau and the comedy of errors that resulted in this movie are exactly what you would think and nothing that you could have predicted. And it drew me in and strung me along and made me read the whole thing in one sitting in a way that The Room was not a good movie. This book about it was a very good read.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very good read.
Well, now I guess I have to watch The Room.
Watch the movie first and then read The Disaster Artist, because if you do it the other way around, neither of them will have the same impact. So definitely do it in a specific order.
Okay, I guess it's my turn, and I'm gonna get straight to the point this time.
Wow.
I am always skeptical whenever it comes to, like, best-selling novels.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, it's not so much, oh, I'm so cool, I'm avoiding mainstream stuff at all costs.
No, but as a librarian.
Yeah, as a librarian, you just kind of like, yeah, this is a bestseller, okay.
You spend a lot of time at the front desk watching the bestseller shelf constantly shifting and changing, and it all becomes a blur.
Yeah.
Now, there has been one author that I was kind of curious about. I just wanted to see why he was here, and it was Frederick Backman. I kept on wanting to say Bachman, but it's Backman. And the book I read is called A Man Called Ove. O-V-E-E. O-V-E. There we go. And it's about this old man who's just done with life. He doesn't want to be in the world anymore. He's ready to kill himself. But through a series of, unfortunate to him, circumstances, he's still kicking. And it's just... For one, I haven't read anything about, like, an old man before who kind of reminded me not so much of my grandpa, but just what I think of whenever I think of a stereotypical grumpy old man who would be more of an antagonist in a children's novel than it would be the protagonist of, like, a motivating novel or anything like that. But it was the perfect combination of sad and funny. Like, I was laughing a whole lot through it, as well as crying plenty of times, not just at the end. Like, there were plenty of things in the middle that got me too.
Wow.
And it just was like this old man who hates the world, and through very hilarious situations comes to not hate the world as much.
Well, so a heartwarming story then.
Very much so, yes. And I do enjoy my heartwarming stories.
I laughed, I cried, I learned a lesson.
Yes. I am Lifetime Movie Channel's main target audience.
Okay, well, I'm very much not. And that still sounds interesting to me just from the fact that we're led into this novel by the idea that this man is ready to die.
Yeah, he has, like, throughout the entire book, I think that he tried to kill himself, like, maybe 7 times.
Oh my God.
In different, like, severities. Like, okay, last time didn't work, so I'm gonna do, like...
I'm gonna really get it this time.
I'm gonna really get it this time.
I'm gonna make sure.
But he's a perfectionist, so if something is amiss, he can't do it.
He can't follow through.
So, like, I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything because it's in, like, the first couple of chapters. Like, he's getting ready to, well, I won't describe it just because, you know.
To do the deed.
No.
To do the deed in a very classic fashion. I'll leave that one up to your imagination. And somebody runs over his mailbox. And so, of course, he has to go out and yell at them.
Yeah, because you can't let that stand. You have to stop what you're doing and deal with that.
Of course.
And then there was one where, like, he was ready to do the deed again. And then he's like, well, there's a cat in here. I can't do it with the cat in here. I need to get the cat out of here. And then...
Was it his cat?
No. He hated this cat.
It's not even a who's going to take care of the cat when I'm gone situation. It's just a...
I don't feel comfortable with you watching me.
Well,
Yeah.
From there, it kind of progressed. Like, well, now this cat needs some food. It keeps on asking for food, so I gotta get some food.
Oh, so it wasn't his cat, but now it's his cat.
Now it's his cat. And he hated this cat. And then, as the story unfolds, you get to learn more of his backstory and why he's ready to kill himself and why he is just kind of the way he is, why he's so grumpy and everything. Because in a man who dealt with a lot of what he had to deal with, it's kind of understandable they would be so grumpy and negative. But it ends up being very heartwarming as he reluctantly gets to know his neighbors and reluctantly helps them out with their problems. Not because he feels satisfaction from it, but because they weren't doing it right.
Of course, because he's a perfectionist.
This sounds
and
like...
he needed to show him how to do certain things right.
That
Of
is
course.
delightful. That sounds like a grown-up version of Disney and Pixar's Up.
Oh my God, it does.
If the old man was played by, like, Walter Matthau.
Yes.
So, no, that does sound great because what really grabs me about that? You describe this man as being very elderly.
Yes.
And so if you feel like, if you are genuinely close to the end of your life and you just kind of feel done, like there's nothing else left for you to do, there's nothing holding you here, then why not? Why stick around if you can't be bothered? If you feel like you've done everything you needed to do or there's nothing
Do we know
interesting
exactly how old he is?
So,
Do they ever specify?
Yeah, like
I
90s,
think so.
80s?
70s.
70s. Okay, well, so still that's, like, you might have a lot of life left ahead of you or you might not. So you would be legitimate in saying, like, we'll round it off
I'm
here.
done.
Yeah, we'll round it off here. So to me, like, kind of the most heartwarming part of that is to be at that age and to feel that done with everything and then to still find something that makes you want to keep going.
To keep on finding reasons, because there's always reasons.
Exactly. And, I mean, we think that it's more tragic when someone who's in their 20s or their 30s has, like, depression or anxiety or PTSD or some sort of mental health issue, or they have that sort of fugue where they can't connect with other people, they don't want to do anything, and they feel like the life that they have waiting ahead of them doesn't matter. And then it's this huge success or victory when that's turned around and they decide to keep going, because the argument always is, you have so much life ahead of you. You have so much life left to live. Why would you want to waste it? But when someone is 78 or 85, it becomes, well, they had a good run. Which is not fair, because they might be 112 when they die if they keep going. You might have another 40, 30, 50 years left in you. Who knows? So I like that someone bothered to write that story and to tell, like, yeah, maybe you are 80. that doesn't mean that it's over. That doesn't mean that the game is done.
Right.
And there's still good reasons to find to keep going.
Maybe you are a lonely old man who doesn't have anyone in his life, but there's always something to keep you going.
Yeah, there's always a cat that needs to be fed. There's always a broken mailbox. No, I love that.
Which
actually.
I think probably, in a way, is there really always something, or are you always looking for something? Like,
Yeah.
Are you really done?
Exactly. Yeah, like, is this a story about someone who really had nothing to live for? Or was this a person who was looking for a reason to keep living?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
found it. And honestly, either one of those sounds like a great story, but also I kind of see that the sort of sly finger alongside the nose, what the author did
Right.
there. Like, no, it's this cat wandered into this life. You could have gone ahead. You could have finished. You
could have put the cat outside.
Yeah, you could have put the cat outside. It wasn't even your cat. You let the cat stop you.
Mm-hmm.
You let if you're going to die anyway, why do you care if your mailbox is broken? You're not going to be checking your mail tomorrow. That's someone else's problem now. But he let it stop him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
He let it stop him. Not only did he fix the mailbox, but it was like a young couple who was moving in next door who causes the rest of the pain in the novel. And he very begrudgingly taught the man how to properly back up a trailer because
Because he couldn't stand not to.
he couldn't stand that, like, I think it was in his words, who's behind the wheel? I know how to back up a trailer properly.
Okay. No, I kind of see this characterization really coming through, but I get what you mean, though. A sort of a generic grumpy old man who, in like a Lemony Snicket novel, this would be the bad guy.
Exactly.
Or at least he would be someone who presented an obstacle in the character's way
Yeah.
if he wasn't the villain. And those kinds of characters don't often get these kinds of stories. So
Yeah.
that by itself makes me
Right.
kind of want to read it.
They're often like the side character who's like a mentor or something to somebody
Mhm.
significantly younger, or their problems are just kind of tossed to the wind or whatever.
Or they're a prop for the actual protagonist's development, where this is someone who the main character is going to come in and they're going to help them and reform them or redeem them. And that story that's being told is the main character going through that process, not really about the person who is experiencing the actual character
Right.
growth.
And like it also took place in Sweden. And so he constantly talked about this type of car. Can't remember what it was for the life of me because it's like a Swedish car.
Right.
Mhm.
And it's like, this is the only good kind of car in the world. I don't trust anyone who drives French cars or anything.
That's
like
hilarious. That
And-
is, if you are, I mean, I assume that our entire audience base here is in Kentucky, probably even in Moorhead, but it's the Chevy Ford dispute.
Yes. Yeah, if you drive Chevy, then it's like you're a Chevy family, kind of like how we remember growing up, you were either like an Xbox or a PlayStation
Yeah, oh, yeah.
household, the console wars, but it's like, no, we are a Ford
No,
family.
yeah.
My son will not drive a Chevrolet. How dare you?
but even though it's taking place in Sweden and there are some like cultural things that I didn't quite comprehend, the overall story is quite digestible and very fun.
No, I get that because that specific reference makes me think of, you're a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan. And it was not until I was well an adult that I really got the joke with Ford Prefect. I knew because Douglas Adams tells you in the book that he had mistakenly taken his name from an automobile and why, but I did not get the joke about it, why it was a Ford Prefect specifically, because that's just not a car that we have here.
Right?
And so part of the humor was lost on me, the specific joke that he was telling, but it didn't ruin the book by any means. Like, I still read and enjoyed the entire series, and Ford as a character, of course, still had the same impact. So, yeah, no, I get it. I'm going to have to read both of these books.
Yes.
And I'm going to go
definitely.
home and watch The Room. We've been looking for a new show. And a movie will suffice tonight.
Well, hey, listen, we're recording this on a Thursday. We're over the hump of the week, and going towards the weekend after a long week is absolutely the time to sit down and, watch a movie like that, have friends over, make a night out of it, have a pizza night or something, because that gives you the motivation. It's like, oh, the weekend's almost here. Let's do something stupid that's just like good, clean, smooth brain fun.
Not a wrinkle in sight.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a great segue and a short one.
Proud of you. Look at you.
Into the final section of today's episode, where I want to briefly talk about our staff picks for this quarter, because the theme was motivation, and we each picked what we picked for a different reason. And so everybody chose something different. I thought we had a really interesting crop. A lot of people interpreted motivation differently. So we had a pretty diverse set of books out on the shelf right now. And for me, I chose It Gets Better was one of them, because it's been a long year. It's been a long couple years. It's been a long decade, hasn't it?
Yeah.
2020 was a long century. And so all of us are feeling the pressure. We're all kind of feeling the strain. And I wanted to put something out on the shelf that, even though that message, that book itself may be a little bit dated, the message is good. And it does get better. And I wanted to put something out there that was going to inspire people to, just brighten their day a little bit. I also chose the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook.
Oh, of course you did, nerd.
I did. We're all librarians.
Megan
here.
runs the anime club.
Yeah. I just want to say...
I just would like to interject really quickly.
But I chose that because creativity can also be a powerful motivator. And there's a really diverse demographic spread among people who play tabletop games. And we have a pretty good crop of game books and source books and rule books in our nonfiction section as well. And that's something that I want to encourage people to go digging for, because sometimes, even if you have days when you can't get invested in yourself, you can get invested in somebody else. We've all been there, right? We've all been the mom friend where we can't overcome our own depression or anxiety, even if it's not chronic, even just for today. We're having a bad day. But for somebody else, we can have a good hour or a good 15 minutes because they need it to happen.
I feel like it's the metaphor of, like, you can't go up to the counter and ask for your own ketchup.
But you can get ketchup packets for the whole table because your friend is too nervous to do it or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so in this case, you can commit to a group, or even if it's a fictional character, if you have something that for a moment inspires you to go, ooh, this would be really cool, or what if, then that can carry you through, and maybe you can have a good day for yourself. And I have been having a lot of good days by practicing my baking skills during the pandemic. So something I've been working on, I've been getting better at. And Claire Saffitz, who used to be a chef with Bon Appetit and now is independent. She's a freelance chef, a mercenary chef, if you will, on the edge with nothing to lose. She published a cookbook called Dessert Person, which I chose because I saw a change in her when she left Bon Appetit and went out on her own. And so the cookbook is good. I like the way that it's written, and I have made several recipes from it that I have enjoyed making that are things I wouldn't have tried without her supervision, so to speak. So I'm glad of that. But also, the tone of the book is different, because when she was with Bon Appetit, she seemed kind of unhappy most of the time, sort of like cranky, and like she didn't want to be there. They weren't giving her great material to work with, or they were making her cook things she didn't want to cook.
Right.
And now she's doing this on her own. She's published her own cookbook, and she really seems to be happier herself. She seems to be in a better place. And so that motivated me to see what kind of recipes were motivating her. And I've been very pleased with the results. So I definitely recommend it. Check it out. Give it a try. I know a lot of people are practicing baking and cooking during these rough times for a lot of reasons. And I think her book is a good one.
So it wasn't even just that you're a strong cook and a subpar baker. It was
correct.
That really motivational background of the author.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Whatever. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Listen, I acknowledge my strengths and my weaknesses. That's why I checked out the book, and that's why you should check out the book as well if you are also a subpar baker, or as I like to refer to it, an up and coming baker,
a novice.
A novice. very quickly, you want to talk about your staff picks as well?
Sure. Mine is Me and Rowan and a Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews. It's about this dude who falls in love with a dying girl. And
Wow, that was quick.
Motivation.
It's like a Fault in Our Stars ripoff, but better. So, if you want more information on it, check it out.
Dang.
Because the keyword for this quarter's staff picks was motivation, I picked nothing. And I firmly stand by that choice. And I'm disappointed as a millennial that some of my fellow co-workers didn't also take that route. But sure, Morgan, bake your heart out.
Wow. Okay. You know what? You know what? That's so valid.
Thank you.
That's a mood.
I appreciate
actually.
it.
That is a mood.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and we don't know the theme for the next quarter yet because you told me earlier. How long will these books be up?
Quarterly.
End of September.
I know that
Okay.
Atlanta was talking about naughty or nice, but nothing's set in stone yet.
Okay, but these staff picks will be available through the end of September.
Yes.
So the beginning of October is when we'll switch them out.
Mhm.
And of course, you can watch our website and social media. And Atlanta will make a blog post about it when we change the theme and do new staff picks. So keep an eye on that. And definitely let us know if there are specific books or media that you would like for us to cover. If you have reading recommendations for us, for if you found a pleasant surprise somewhere in the catalog, or if you have a bad book that you would like for us to read for Bad Book Club, do let us know. We want to hear from you. So leave that in the comments or hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, on Instagram or Goodreads. And of course, you can email us. Come in and see us. Check out some of these books for yourself. And let us know that if you read one of our recommendations or watch or play one of our recommendations, then we want to know what you thought of it too. Did you agree with us? Did you disagree? Feel free to, trash our opinions in the comments or validate me since these two won't.
Yeah.
Gotta get it
We
somewhere.
love you.
Yeah, yes.
The eye roll that you can't see is delightful. Oh, well, that'll do it for this episode of The Reading Room. Look forward to another episode later this month. And until then, as always, I'm Morgan.
I'm Megan.
I'm Emery.
And this has been The Reading Room, the podcast brought to you by your Rowan County Public Library.